Yo, what's going on everybody, this is Rocklan here and welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be going over the top 5 best effects to use in your Valorant montages in Adobe After Effects. This is part 2 to another video that I've made. I covered 5 effects in that other video and I'm going to cover 5 more in this video. I recommend you check out the other video once you're done watching this one, as a lot of those effects are the essentials that you're going to need as well, such as scales, blurs, flashes, etc. You can go check that video out once you're done with this one. I'll leave a link to it on the end card of this video, as well as in the pop-out banner in the top right corner right now. Just before we get started, make sure you follow me on all my other social media, links will be in the description, as well as check out my channel for more tutorials on Valorant editing and just editing in general, as well as my previous montages, as well as join the Discord server. Drop by, show off your edits, get help from other editors, and we also queue some Valorant games sometimes. And without any further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so for this video I'm going to be using Adobe After Effects. I'll probably make a Premiere Pro tutorial as well. Leave a comment letting me know if you want to see that. If you don't have After Effects already, there's a link down in the description, you can check it out if you want to. Not sponsored, but it is an affiliate link, so if you use it, you're helping the channel out at no extra cost to yourself. And onto our first effect. So the first effect we're going to be covering is called Displacement Map, and basically what that does is it takes the information from one video and applies it to another video. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So for this specific displacement, we're going to be using a Shockwave video, which looks like this if I play it quickly. Literally just a simple shockwave. You've used it in previous tutorials as well. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can get this video from. And basically, we're just going to drag it straight onto our timeline and you'll see we get this little shockwave video. Now what we're going to be using this for is to add extra effect for when we get kills in our montages, things like that. And there's kind of 2 ways you can do it. So to start off with, I'm going to right click on the shockwave.mp4 video, making sure that it's above my actual gameplay clip. I'm going to change the blending mode to screen. So now you can see we've got the shockwave just over the top of the video. And if that's good enough for you, you can leave it like that. Obviously I'm going to want to sync it up, so I'm going to skip through the video until I get to the point where we get a kill, which is right as soon as it pops up in the kill feed there. So on this frame is where we get the kill. So I'm going to drag the shockwave across so that it appears exactly where we get the kill, so right there. And you can leave it like that if you want. If I preview that quickly,
30 seconds left. One enemy remains.
you can see it's there, adds a little bit of an effect, but it's not particularly impressive and I wouldn't want to use it like that. It just seems a little bit out of place. So instead what we're going to do is use a displacement map to make that affect the video below it. So in order to do that, I'm just going to right click on the shockwave.mp4, choose pre-compose, and I can just leave it like that. You want to tick move all attributes to a new composition, and don't tick adjust composition duration for time span of the selected layers. Leave that unchecked because we want it to take up the entire composition, or at least as long as our clip is. Obviously we can cut that down later. And then we're going to hit OK, and you'll see it would have given it a black background and it now looks like this. So if you double click on the composition layer like this, you'll go into the inside of the composition where you can see we have the shockwave. You can see it doesn't take up the entire space, but we don't really need it to. And now what you're going to want to do is double check that the blending mode is on screen, which it is, and then we're going to right click, choose new, and then solid, and we're going to go for a grey solid, and we need this to be the perfect grey, so 50% between black and white. So by default your solid should look like this, should just be black. You're just going to come up to where the B is and the percentage sign, click it and change that to 50, so it's the direct midpoint between white and black, and I'll show you why that's important later. And we're just going to hit OK and drag it below the shockwave. So now we have the shockwave on top of a grey solid. Now what I like to do is scale the shockwave up so that it fits the composition. We want to make sure that it fits it but doesn't go off the edges, otherwise that can make a bit of a weird artifact on the main clip. So I'm going to go to the point where I find the shockwaves at its biggest, which I think is about there, and I'm just going to scale it up by clicking one of the corners and holding shift, and that will scale it in the same aspect ratio, just so we can get it as big as it will go so that it still fits the screen. And there we go, it doesn't seem to be going off the edge. Obviously I can make it a bit smaller later if we need to. And now what I'm going to do is go back to our main composition, and you can see the grey solid is now there permanently. So what you want to do now is hide that layer so that you can see the clip again. And what we're going to do is come down to the clip. You can do this on an adjustment layer as well. I'm just going to apply it to the clip, and you're going to come over to the effects and presets and search for displacement map, and you'll see displacement map. I have Video Copilot's FX console installed, so I can just apply effects directly from the timeline. I'll leave a link to download that plugin in the description. It's completely free. All you do is just select the layer you want to add the effect to, press Control and space, bring up this window, and I just search displace, and you can see displacement map. I'm going to select that, and in my properties panel I can change the displacement map layer from our clip to the shockwave composition, and change where it says horizontal displacement to luminance, and the vertical one to luminance as well. And then if we just tick wrap pixels around just in case it goes off of the edge. That will basically mirror what we see around the edges in case it ends up being displaced too much. Ideally we want to avoid that, but if that happens, you know, it doesn't look too bad. And now we're going to want to find the point where we get the kill and the shockwave appears, which is going to be about here. And you can't really tell at the moment, but it has applied, and the only way you're able to tell is by dragging up these values. So if we make this something like 20, make the vertical displacement something like 20 as well, you'll see now we've got this sort of effect in the middle there of this shockwave that comes out the middle of the clip like that. We can obviously increase this more if you want, so you can bump it up to something like 40, and the vertical displacement to something like 40 as well if you want, and you'll see now it's just got this sort of shockwave effect that displaces the video beneath it. I'll quickly preview that for you so it's at a decent resolution.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
Now I think that's slightly too powerful, so what I'm going to do instead is knock that down to 20 on the horizontal and also 20 on the vertical, and I think that's slightly better and suits my liking a little bit better. What I'm also going to do is make it a bit faster as well. So if I double click to go back into that composition, you can see it lasts quite a long time. So I'm just going to right click on it, hit time, and then time stretch, and change the value from 100 to 50 to make it half the speed so that it's twice as fast. And now if we go back to our main composition, you'll see it now lasts half the amount of time. Now the reason why I said to make the background grey, if I go back in and I disable this grey background, you'll see what will happen when we go back to the shockwave effect is the edges start doing this sort of thing. You'll see it as soon as the shockwave video appears, the edges of the video start going off like that, which is why I said to enable wrap pixels around, otherwise you end up with these weird black bars which you don't really want. So make sure you have that ticked if you're going to not bother with a grey background. I'd also make sure that you have your horizontal displacement to 0, and then you can just put a black bar at the top and bottom to try and hide that. The method that I said using the grey background is obviously a better way to go about it, and the reason it works is because black will symbolise a displacement in one direction, white will symbolise a displacement in another direction, and the grey that's directly between white and black, hence why we put the 50%, is going to be no displacement whatsoever. So the only part of the video that's going to be displaced is where the shockwave is, which is why with the grey background you can see only the shockwave actually affects the video. You don't have to just use shockwaves, you can use other videos like of running water or something like that. Looks quite cool, or really any, you can Google displacement maps and download some other ones. The shockwave is just what I'm using for the sake of this tutorial, but realistically you can use anything you like. And for a final preview of what that looks like,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
and that is pretty much it for displacement maps. On to the second effect. Okay, so for our next effect we have the warp effect. So more specifically I'm going to be using a fisheye warp, which is quite similar to optics compensation, which is what we used in the last video, but it works in a slightly different way. So I'm going to go to the point where I get the kill, so we'll see it happens exactly there. You can go frame by frame by using page up and page down if you want, otherwise just drag the playhead. And then what I'm going to do is click on the layer and press Control Space and search for warp, or alternatively if you don't have that plugin you can come over to Effects and Presets and search warp, and you're going to be wanting to find the warp under the store. If you don't have any other plugins, it will be the only warp that you have. The whole idea of this video is we're not going to be using any plugins. Everything is completely free and stock in After Effects. You don't have to go out and buy any expensive plugins for this video or to get any of these effects. So you're just going to drag it onto your clip and you'll see it will automatically do something a bit weird like this. Now there's several different warp styles that come as presets. You have arc lower, arc upper, arch, bulge, etc. You can go through these and figure out, you know, if you want to use any others for any reason. The one that I'm going to be showing in this video is fisheye, and you're going to come down to the bend and make it a negative number, and you'll see it will sort of suck the screen in like that. So what I'm going to do for the frame where we get the kill, which is right here, I'm going to set the bend to 0, and then I'm going to click the little stopwatch next to it to keyframe it. I'm going to go back one frame by pressing page up, and then I'm going to change the bend to the furthest I want it to be in. So you can go in or out depending on, so for this example it might be better to go out because you can sort of see the character a bit better. I'm going to have it go in though, because that's what I typically tend to do. It's just part of my style. You can do whatever you like, obviously experiment with it, make it your own. I'm going to go into probably about 50, and it should automatically be keyframed if that stopwatch is ticked. To double check that, you can just select the layer and press U on your keyboard and it will bring up all of the keyframes, and you can zoom in and you can see we have got bulged and then it flicks back to normal. So now what I'm going to do is go back to the point where I began the spray or peeked around the corner, so I'm thinking probably something like that, just as the character appears on screen, and I'm going to put the bend back to 0. and now you'll see between this point and the point where we get the kill, it zooms in and then will pop out as soon as we get the kill. And with that you can add a scale or a shake or a blur or a flash or something like that. I covered those in the other video, so if you want to learn how to do that, check that out. It works really well when you start layering it with other effects on its own. It's a little bit boring, but as soon as you add a flash, a shake, a blur, whatever, something like that, it becomes a lot more impressive. So I'll preview what this looks like for you really quick.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
Now, of course, for this video, I get 2 kills, so you could potentially, if you wanted to, add it to both kills. I think I'm just going to show you on the first kill for the majority of these effects. All you would have to do for the second one is literally find where you got the kill again, which would be right there. Grab these keyframes, press Ctrl-C and then Ctrl-V, and drag it so that you have the last keyframe on that kill as well. And you'll see now it will zoom in onto that kill, bang, and do the exact same for the second one if you wanted to apply any of these effects to multiple kills. Alternatively, you can have it go the other direction, so I could have it like this. So if I drag this back, and so on the kill itself it becomes zoomed in. So I'm going to drag this keyframe, which is at 0, to the frame before the kill, so you can see this is before the kill, during the kill, after the kill, and then I'm going to drag this one out a bit further, so you'll see we will get the kill, it will zoom in and then slowly come back out ready for the next one. I'll preview that for you as well.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining. 30 seconds.
So if you prefer the look of that, of course, go for that as well. Using the same effect, it can be used in multiple ways. Of course, like I said, you don't even have to use a fisheye warp. You go for a squeeze or anything really. I don't like anything with black bars either side, but you could probably add motion tile or something like that to take care of that. But for the sake of this tutorial, fisheye is what I would stick to. Alternatively, you could use optics compensation like I spoke about in the previous video. I use them both interchangeably depending on the kind of effect that I'm going for. Fisheye is a little bit more dramatic, so I do tend to use this a bit more often. And then on to the next effect. So this is going to be a desaturation. So basically you're going to want to go to the point where you get the kill again. Just like with any of these effects, you can apply it on an adjustment layer if you want to. I'm just going to be applying it to the actual video layer itself, just for the sake of the tutorial. Of course, apply it to adjustment layer if you'd rather do it that way. And then what you're going to want to do is press Ctrl Space if you have the FX console plugin, or go over to Effects and Presets and search. And you're going to want to search for Hue Saturation. You'll see Hue/Saturation and click that, and it's going to bring up a window like this. Now what you're going to want to do is when you're on the frame of the kill, which you should be already, you're just going to tick this little stopwatch with a master saturation of 0, and you're going to go back exactly 1 frame and go to a master saturation of -100. Now what that's going to do is completely desaturate the image so that it's black and white. If I press U whilst on the selected layer, you can see there are 2 keyframes there, so color, no color, and I'm going to go back much like we did with the other one, just to the point where the character comes on screen, so about there. And I'm going to put the master saturation back to 0, just like that, and you'll see now we have color. So effectively what this is going to do is as the kill gets closer, the saturation is going to disappear, and then as soon as you get the kill, bang, the color comes back. It's quite a cool effect to add. I wouldn't overdo it. If you've got an important kill, for example, add it on its own, it looks a bit bland, but if you add it with a blur or a shake or something like that, I might add the warp effect. So if I grab this quickly, I'll copy this over. We'll put this on as well, shall we? So I'll show you what this looks like with a quick preview.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
And there you go, as you can see, with the hue saturation, it just adds a little bit extra. Obviously, add a flash, a shake, something else like that on its own, it looks a little bit bland. Of course, you can check out my other video for how to do that. Layering effects for kills is one of the most important parts of an edit. Just using 1 or 2 looks a bit bland. It's once you start layering multiple effects on top of each other, it becomes super impressive. So I'd recommend you definitely do that. And now we'll move on to the next effect, which is the 4-way color effect, or the 4 color gradient is what it's actually called in After Effects. So for this, what I'm going to do is right click new and make an adjustment layer, and then I'm going to, on the adjustment layer, either go over to Effects and Presets, or if you have the FX console, Control Space, and I'm going to search for 4, and you can see immediately 4 color gradient, and I'm going to tick that, and you'll see it will bring up a screen like this. Now what you're going to want to do is where it says blending mode, change this to overlay. Overlay is the best one that I found so far. You can try things like screen if you want to go for more of like a glow, or you can go to hue or anything really. I use overlay personally. I think that's the best for this sort of thing. And you'll see now throughout the video, you've got this this sort of color grade where it's rainbow, just like that. Now what I'm gonna do is go to the point where we get the kill, which is right there, and I'm gonna go onto the adjustment layer, and I'm gonna grab the pen tool and do a rough outline of the gun. So I'm just gonna stay slightly outside of the lines, just like this. You can rotoscope rotoscope it out if you want to be super duper accurate. I do have a tutorial on rotoscoping if you want to check that out as well. I probably would myself, but for the sake of this tutorial, a simple mask will do. So there you go, you can see I'm just masking it out just like that, and join the points at the bottom, and you'll see now it will only apply to where that mask is. Now I'm going to double tap M on the adjustment layer to bring up the mask options, and I'm going to feather it to about 60 or so, and you can see now it's got this sort of glow around the gun. And if you want to, like I said earlier, change the blending mode to screen, and it's going to add this sort of like glow, if you will. I'm going to leave it on overlay just for the time being while I demonstrate some features quickly. So if I hide this mask, I'll just change it to do nothing. You'll see we've got this overlay like this. Now I want to animate it so that it's not just static colors. So in order to do that, you're just going to want to tick color 1, color 2, color 3, and color 4. Make sure that you have all of those stopwatches checked, and if you press U on the adjustment layer, you'll see you get these 3 bars. So I'm going to go forwards a few frames, and I'm going to click on each color up here one by one. So color 1, I'm going to click, it's yellow right now, I'm going to drag it up down to the next one, drag it up, next one, drag it up, next one, and drag it up just like that. And then I'm going to go forward a few more frames and do the exact same thing again. So I'm going to drag this up, drag this one up, drag this one into the orange, and drag this one up into the red just like that. And I'm going to go forwards again, and I'm going to drag them all up one more time just like that. So you'll now see the color is actually animated just like that, as you can see. So if I quickly run preview that for you,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
you can see there is a small animation of the colors around the point when we get the kill. So if I enable that mask again, press M and change the mask to add, you'll see it will now just apply to the gun. So you can see it's going to add this sort of rainbow effect to it. So I'm going to go to the point where we get the kill, which is right there. Select the adjustment layer and press Alt and the open square bracket like that, just to cut the layer at that point. So you'll see as soon as we get the kill, the color will appear, and then I want it to slowly fade out once it stops. So it stops changing color about here. I'm going to press T on my keyboard while selecting the adjustment layer, bring up the opacity, select the stopwatch to add a keyframe, go forwards a little bit, and drag the opacity down to 0. So you'll see now it will cycle through the colors, and then it will disappear slowly just like that. And then I can cut the end of this adjustment layer off using Alt and the closed square bracket to do the same thing. Alternatively, you can press Ctrl-Shift-D and then delete the excess. So if I preview that for you,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
that is what it looks like. I think the animation is slightly too quick, so I can just go in and press U and spread these keyframes out. So I'll do that, and then obviously bring the opacity one back up a bit like that. So if I show you what that looks like with a slightly slower animation,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
and see it's slightly slower now. Now if I change the blending mode back to screen, you can see it's now more of a glow, sort of like that, which can look better in some instances. I would probably want to change the opacity, so if I press T, go to the first keyframe where we put it at 100. If I put it to something like 50, think like that, that would look quite cool like this. So if I preview that quickly,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
I think that actually looks better with the screen. It's just more of like a glow rather than just changing the color of it. And you don't even have to have it animated at all if you don't want to. You can remove the animation entirely, just like that, and you'll see it will stay just one solid color. Another thing I want to show is, so if I disable the mask quickly, back to none, change the blending mode back to none, you can see the 4 points is where the color originates from. So if I'll put this back onto the screen like we had it before, and if I want to drag these circles back towards the gun, I can make the colors actually originate inside of the weapon itself, just like this, and it's going to add a bit more color variation inside the gun, just like that. So when I enable the mask again, you can see the rainbow effect is now actually inside the gun itself, and it's more like a sort of like a rainbow spiral kind of. So if I preview that,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
that is another way you can do it if you don't like it being just sort of one's color cycling through. It's completely up to you what colors you use, how you animate it, whether you animate it or whether you don't, where you have the color origin points, completely up to you, what blending mode you use. Literally do whatever you like, to your edit, not mine. But one thing I would say is just having it appear when you get the kill is a bit bizarre. So if I did like I did with the other one, if I preview this, you'll get the sort of idea of what I mean about layering effects, and it just adds a little bit something extra.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining. 30 seconds left. One enemy.
And there you go. As you can see, by layering effects, we've made this this really cool sequence of events, which makes the kill seem better than it actually is. And of course, like I said in the other video, I covered a bunch of other things which you could also add to this. If I wanted to, I could add the shockwave as well. Once I've covered our next effect, I'll put all 5 that we learned in this video together and show you what that looks like. Speaking of which, on to our next effect is something called Chromatic Aberration. Now, I'll put a picture on screen of what Chromatic Aberration is. Essentially, it's when the red, blue and green channels get separated from the video and spread out one after another. You can get paid plugins in After Effects to do this for you. So if I just search for Chroma, you'll see Uni Chromatic Aberration. I must have another one in here somewhere, surely. VR Chromatic Aberrations. If I put the Uni one on, you'll just see what it's supposed to look like. You can see you've got the reds and the orange. Well, you've basically got the whole spectrum here separated from the video. There's another one which demonstrates a little bit better. Here we go. Yeah, Time Warp RGB is what it's called. It's a what is it? It's a Sapphire plugin effect. Obviously, we don't have to do that because I'm going to teach you how to do it without any plugins. But effectively, this is the sort of effect we're going for, where it separates the colors out from the main video. So in order to do this without any plugins or anything like that, completely for free, what we're going to want to do is make a new adjustment layer. I'm going to do this while on an adjustment layer. I don't believe you have to, but I've only ever tried to do it on an adjustment layer, so I'm going to do it on one. And I'm going to go to the point where we get the kill, just like normal. And I'm going to press Control Space with the FX console installed. If you don't have it, obviously effects and presets and drag it on. And I'm going to search for an effect called Optics Compensation, which is something that we covered in the previous video, but for this video we're going to be using it for a completely different purpose. And I'm also going to be searching for an effect called 3D glasses. You can see right here. In fact, I'll do it over here, 3D glasses, just so that people without FX console are included. And I'm going to drop it on there like that. And you'll see it's going to have done something weird like this. So I'm going to change where it says left view to our Valorant clip, and you'll see it's going to do that. And then where it says 3D view, I'm going to change from stereo pair side by side to balance colored red blue. And you'll see now the video is pretty standard, but instead now what I'm going to do is go up to where it says optics compensation, and I'm going to drag it up to something like 8 or so. And I'm going to tick where it says reverse lens distortion, like that. And you'll see now we're going to start to get this this chromatic aberration. For example, mid-link, you can see it's got the red and the blue separated. The colors are going to be slightly different, obviously, because 3D glasses don't separate out the reds, the greens and the blues. I'm pretty sure they do. Was it red and cyan or something like that? But the more optics compensation you give it, the more the colors are going to separate. So like this, you can see, you know, we've got the reds and the blues separated on the rifle like that. Towards the middle, it will do less because that's what optics compensation does, and that's effectively what it does. So from where I get the kill, which is right on this frame, I'm going to want to keyframe the FOV of my optics compensation to, you know, a level that I'm happy with. So I could go super crazy like this. I'm just going to leave it at what, 27.8 is what I had it at, so I'll tick it there and go back one frame and put it to 0, and you'll see it will disappear. And then I'm going to go forward and I'm going to put it back to 0. So you'll see if I press U on the adjustment layer, we've got these keyframes. So it's going to start off normal, come in, get the kill, the chromatic aberration is going to happen, and it's going to slowly disappear towards the end. So if I preview that for you quickly,
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
you can see it's very subtle. I may even want to go midway through if I copy this keyframe here, and I will drag it across a little bit, something like that, just so it stays there a bit longer. So you have the effect, and then it will disappear later on. And it's just another effect to add to the set of layers of effects that we're going to use. So now I'm going to put all 5 effects we learnt in this video all in one clip and show you the kind of results you can expect. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the adjustment layer with the 4-way color on it. Here we have the adjustment layer with the desaturation and the bulge on it. Here we have the shockwave, which appears like this because of the chromatic aberration. If I disable that, you can see the shockwave does that. With the chromatic aberration, it makes an even cooler effect like this. And then this adjustment layer has the chromatic aberration on it. The only effect that the actual clip has is the displacement map for the shockwave. So as you can see, I've layered all 5 effects we've learned in this video, and if I preview it quickly, this is what it will look like.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
And there you go. You can see the shockwave does leak onto the gun a bit. You could mask out the gun so that the shockwave doesn't appear on top of it. Really not that big of a deal. If you can't bother, don't blame you. But it's probably something that I would do. I've also decided that I do not like the way that the colors are all in one here, so I'm gonna just select the 4-color gradient and move these back to their normal spots. I like them being a little bit more separate. And the way that it cycles through colors just a little bit more. So if I play that quick.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining. 30 seconds.
So personally, I prefer that a little bit more. If you liked it the other way, obviously go for that. And that basically concludes this video. Make sure you check out the other one for 5 more effects, which if anything, I think they're more important than the 5 that I showed in this video. I'll leave a link to it in the description, as well as the end card on this video, so make sure you check that out as well. If you want to see a Premiere Pro version of this tutorial, let me know in the comments section. As well as if you'd like to see a version with plugins, I can go over the top effects overall for montages, whether they're with plugins or default with After Effects. If you want to see that, again, let me know. Leave a like on this video. If you don't have After Effects, link in the description to where you can go get it. Join the Discord server, follow me on all of my social media, subscribe if you found this video helpful, and without any further ado, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you later.